folks, welcome back to the Frontier Western Heritage Channel. I'm Todd Kessner here outside of Tucson, Arizona, and today we're going to pattern an old turn-of-the-century English shotgun. Well, I'm back out here at the gun range on a beautiful Arizona afternoon, and I've removed my hat so you could see me. When I have my hat on, I'm so shaded you can't even tell who's talking to you, so I'll put that back on. Apologize for the squint, but I'll put it back on when I get a different angle. But today, I want to shoot for the first time and pattern an Agnew & Son English shotgun. It is built it was built around 1910 in the London area, and found this. You know, I've told you this story before, that I go through wherever I'm at. I'll stop and just peruse through a gun store, and many of them are privately owned, and those are the ones you really like because you never know what's going to be in there. It seems like you go into the chain stores and it's the same, same gun they have at every one of the chain stores. But you go into some of these stores and you buzz through, even pawn shops and things, you can buzz through in a few minutes, and you don't really come up with anything. Most of the time, there's nothing really special to see or piques your interest, but you don't know if you don't look. So I was going through a store and I looked at this shotgun and I thought, my gosh, it has absolutely beautiful Damascus barrels on it. I looked at the price tag. It was under $300. And I thought, well, and it was chained or cabled to the stand so people couldn't just pick it up and carry it around. But I thought, boy, for that price, and usually I don't share the price because I don't spend much on these things because I'm always looking, I'm doing very little buying, even though it seems like by the channel I'm doing a lot of buying. But looked at that price and I thought, well, the bore must just be horrible to have it priced under $300. A beautiful antique shotgun with this Damascus barrel, just gorgeous. And a lot of times the black powder shotguns, that's what you find is somebody didn't clean it and it pitted on them. So I got a clerk and he came over and uncabled the thing, and I looked down the barrels and they're absolutely pristine. I thought, what in the world am I missing? And that's part of the thing, when you find a good deal, half the time you think you're missing something. I must not know enough about this gun. I don't know what the deal is. So we took it in the back room, popped the barrel off of it, took a closer look at it. It's nitro proofed, and it looks like it was cleaned up once. And I'll put up on the screen, I'll go through the whole proofing thing that I found in this gun to kind of show you what that's all about. But it looked like they cleaned it out minimally at some point, polished that bore up and probably removed a few pits. And then it was reproofed. And it was reproofed for nitro again. And the barrels are solid. I mean, they're heavy. I figured that out as soon as I picked it up. Like a black powder shotgun doesn't have the heft that a nitro-proofed shotgun has. So as I was looking at this particular gun, I thought, what's the harm in taking a chance at under $300 on a shotgun? You can't buy a cheap shotgun for under $300, let alone this thing is really pretty. It's really well taken care of and really pretty. And that is one thing you'd find with English shotguns, UK, whatever you want to say about that part of Great Britain, part of the world. They treated them a whole lot different than Americans. So even though this one was, by the serial number, close as I can tell, it's right around 1910. It could be plus or minus a couple of years, either way. But the culture there, and I've had much better shotgun aficionados than myself. I'm nothing like that, but I have talked to some guys that really know their stuff, particularly about imported English shotguns. And they said, it was a routine to take care of your shotgun, and it's something that was more of a sporting arm. It was a prestige thing. You took really good care. It wasn't a survival gun. It wasn't out in the rain. It wasn't stuck on a saddle somewhere. It was well taken care of. And if you look at a lot of American shotguns, go to some museums, the wrist is broken, the barrels are dented, the thing's rusted to pieces. You can hardly break the action open anymore. Generally speaking, I know there's people that take care of their shotguns better than that, but generally speaking, how many guys do you know with a modern shotgun even today that has never cleaned their shotgun? I've had guys tell me that hunting ducks and stuff, oh, I've never cleaned my shotgun. It's like, good grief. Now in England, that wouldn't fly. I mean, you take good care of the shotgun as a showpiece. It's an important part of your sporting equipment. It's almost Americans sometimes treat their shotguns as if they're disposable, and it's amazing. So anyway, it's in great shape, and it doesn't look like it's been completely redone, although the bores were cleaned out somewhat, and still nitro proofed. So I got a little excited about that because I have a couple of old black powder shotguns, and as much as I like those, you got to clean them as soon as you get back, and if you fired them. And so you can't let them sit around, or you'll end up ruining the shotgun just like somebody could have 100 years ago. So it is kind of nice to have a kind of a cool old antique shotgun that shoots nitro loads. And if I want to clean it the next morning after a day out in the field, if I want to clean it the next weekend, I'm not worried about the thing just rusting to pieces while it's waiting for me to clean it. So it's kind of excited about that. I don't know anything about Agnew & Son. There's very little information on the internet. I have not found out much about them at all, except for a couple of mentions in some of the conversations folks have online. I think there was one on an internet site for $800, and it was not at Steel Barrels. It was not Damascus like this. So I don't know that much about it. Another thing about an English shotgun that you should be aware of, if you happen to pick up something that's in great shape, seems to be working well, and it's proofed, and you can use that. English shotguns historically were chambered at 2.5 inches for 12 gauge. And so you've got to find a 2.5 inch shell. If you put a 2 3/4, I didn't try it on a 2.5 inch, but in many of the 2 5/8 that are American, you can put a 2 3/4 inch shell in there. It's just that when it opens up, the crimp doesn't completely open up flat, and so you're putting that crimp into the forcing cone and not getting the pattern that you should have. 2.5 would be even worse. If you could get a 2 3/4 inch shell in there, again, you're not going to be able to get that shell's not going to be able to open up the way it should in front of the forcing cone and let the shot in. So this is a 2.5 inch chamber, and much to my surprise and delight, I went and did a little internet searching, and I found 2.5 inch shotgun shells. Now, they're not available everywhere. You're not going to pick them up at Bass Pro or anything, but these are an Italian company, B&P, which stands for two names, starts with a B and a P, and it's very Italian, and I will butcher it if I even try to say it. But I got them out of Gordy & Sons out of Houston, Texas, and they're carrying these 2.5 inch English style shotguns. They're also see-through, so that's kind of neat, and you can see exactly what's in there, the wadding and all that. And they're 1 ounce of lead. And a lot of these guns, this one doesn't have it, but I'll show you in the proofs, in the proofing of it. A lot of these guns will also have a maximum proofing of, let's say, 1 1/4 ounce, and it'll have 1 1/4 ounce. Then that'll be the maximum you're going to want to shoot out of it, or 1 1/8 ounce. That'll be what it's proofed for. These are only 1 ounce, and so I think, even though this doesn't say anything about that, I think it's perfectly safe in there. So, you know, collectors look at some of the stuff. If collectors looked at my pocket pistols and shotguns and all that stuff, they'd look at it like somebody would come into your house and look at the junk drawer. You know, they're beat up. They're safe to shoot, but the bores aren't perfect. The finish has gone off of them. They function, they lock up, they do everything I want them to do, and I can shoot them and not feel like I'm destroying a pristine artifact. And you know, you go to gun shows, you can pick up a shotgun, pay several $1,000s for it. It's beautiful, and you're thinking, there's not too many like this pristine of condition, and so you're just going to put it in the safe and make it a safe queen, and you don't want to diminish the value or the looks of a historical artifact. I like buying stuff that I can shoot and not feel bad about it. As long as it's safe, I can hit something with it and test it out and see how people lived and what they used in the 1800s. And this one just goes up to about 1910, so I'm a little bit past my period. But again, it is a nitro-proofed shotgun that I won't have to clean as soon as I get home, and could let it set and not feel that bad about it for a little while anyway. And of course, the primers now are not corrosive, so you don't have that problem either. So I think it's safe to shoot. We're going to pattern this thing and give it a try. I think I'll get you a little closer to this. I don't know how the camera will react to trying to let you see the pattern on this thing, but I'll put a picture on the screen as well. This is the Damascus pattern that the Agnew & Son used for this particular shotgun. It's absolutely gorgeous. Very intricate. It's not a spiral type twist, like there's a twist bore that they just twisted wire around and around in a orange peel like or apple peel like manner. This one is twisted back and forth in quite a pattern made out of it. So they put a lot of work into this. It also has a thumb safety that will let you shoot either barrel or both barrels, and then it has, of course, the You can open it up and you automatically reset the safety. And I think that's a great feature. I just got my daughter a CZ shotgun, a 28 gauge. You have to manually, every time you want to put the safety back on, you have to manually put it back on. That manual putting the safety back on is fine if you remember. If you reloaded it and forgot, it's a very dangerous shotgun, especially if you're used to it resetting the safety as soon as you break open the bore. So that's really nice. So that's fire. I can reopen it, or I can open it and I reset that safety. So we're going to take a look at the proof marks on this shotgun, but I want to start with the side of the receiver, and you can see it's relatively worn, but does say Agnew and Son. And most of the finish is worn off and probably part of the repair or reconditioning of the shotgun that took place over the years. Looking at the rib in between the two barrels from the top, it's really hard to make out in this picture, but it does say Agnew and Son, 79 South Street, Exeter. And Exeter is the location of where Agnew and Son made their shotguns, and it is about 173 miles west and a little bit south of London. So flipping the barrel over, we're going to take a look at the proof marks that are on the underside of the barrel on the breech end. And so I'll try to work through these the best that I can. And so I'm going to start really with the very first proof mark itself. And I'm looking at that the top of the picture. There is an arm and a sword. And underneath it says NP. And that is a London proofing house proof with the letters that it is a nitro powder proof gun. Looking down at the bottom of the picture, there's exactly the same proof mark. Again, it looks like an arm and a sword. Underneath is the NP for nitro proofing. So we know that we've got a gun that was nitro proofed at least when it came out of the shop of Agnew and Son. Moving a little bit to the left, you'll see a little bit lower than that proof mark. You'll see in the top barrel, the one that's on top of the photo, is a 14. And what that tells us is that this thing was originally, at least that barrel originally, was in 14 gauge. So the chamber was 12 gauge, about 9 inches from the breech is where they measured it, and it's 14 gauge, which is .693. So that mark on the barrel of 14 gauges tells us that there's a restriction in the barrel that is actually smaller than 12 gauge. And that was a strategy for keeping a good shot pattern in this shotgun, much like different times the shotguns are backboard and things like that. This one is a little different in that it is restricted board, and that is very much a trait of older shotguns. Same thing on the bottom, and you look at the bottom of the picture on that left barrel, and it's 13, and so 13 gauge is .710, and so that was not quite as restricted, but it was part of the choking process more than anything. So if you look at the top barrel again, in left of the original proof mark that I talked about, it says .719 inch. And basically what that's telling us is that 14 gauge up there that was .693 has been opened up to .719 inches. Looking at the bottom of the picture, which would be the left barrel, we've got the 13 gauge that was 710, and that has been opened up to .719 as well. What that's telling me is both of these barrels have been buffed out. And so when you look at particularly the 14 gauge, it's been buffed out enough to go from .693 inches to .719. 13 gauge only changed about 9 thousandths of an inch. And so we're still in a pretty safe range. Going past our nitro proofing on both of these barrels, you'll see a 12 inside of a diamond. Means that it's 12 gauge, and then to the right of that you'll see a 2.5 inch, which means it's the 2.5 inch length of the chambers. So that gives you all you need to know as far as what kind of ammunition to buy for this particular gun. Just to the right of that you'll also see the markings that say 3 tons on both the upper and lower part of the picture here, and 3 tons per square inch was the way that they were recording at the time of reproofing this, the way that they were recording pressure. Going a little further to the right, you'll see that there is a crown with an R under it. And that basically is the reproofing mark, saying that the gun had been checked after it was cleaned out or bored out, I guess you could say. Not much bored out, but polished out to .719 inches and reproofed to say that gun was safe. Just to the left of that, you can hardly see it, but there is a 12 with a C below it inside the diamond, and that's just another indication in the reproofing process that says this is 12 gauge. Some people will say that it's cylinder choke. Some people will say that it's the C stands for just choke. I checked with some people that really know, and they just said it just means it is 12 gauge. Now, if you look to the right of that diamond, just below the crown and the reproofing mark, you're going to see the word choke on that barrel that's at the bottom of the picture. That does indicate that that bore is choked. And you don't know how much is choked, but it says that it is choked. Before it would just say choke, it said, years ago, historically, it said not for ball, which means don't put a slug down that barrel because it is a restricted barrel. It's a choke barrel. In more modern times, they just wrote the word choke. You might have noticed the pattern of the Damascus barrel from some of the other pictures, but this is a good picture that really shows you the method and how time consuming it must have been to put together this kind of a Damascus barrel, which I just found absolutely beautiful. The craftsmanship is fantastic, and it just has held up very well over the years. So you guys have watched this channel before know that I have this love affair with exposed hammer shotguns, and this one does not have the exposed hammer. Obviously, it's got internal hammers in it, and boy, if it had exposed hammers, I'd be really excited about this thing, because I just think that's cool. One thing that I've noticed though, hunting with these old shotguns, the exposed hammer ones, it's very easy to reach up as you flush a bird and cock that right barrel and be able to fire. It's a different story to reach over, cock that left-hand barrel, and be able to get a follow-up shot. So your alternative is cocking both of them. Not the best thing to do either. It's hard to cock both of them as a bird is rising. So it's just going to take some getting used to of hunting with an old shotgun and seeing if you get better at cocking at that left barrel, because you sure don't want to walk around with them cocked. The advantage of internal hammers, again, slide that safety forward, boom, boom, and away we go. Safety goes back on, I put in 2 more shells, and away I go. So it does alleviate some of the complexity of being able to handle an old shotgun when you have internal hammers like that, and it'd be an advantage. So I'm going to try pattern number 8. I got a couple targets set up down here, big cardboard sheets at 20 yards right now, and then I'll back up to 40. But I've got number 8s, and most of the bird hunting that you do in Arizona is going to be quail, or it's going to be doves. And so I'm going to pattern these number 8s because we're not shooting really big birds. This will not take steel. I'm not going to be shooting ducks with it. Not a big thing in Arizona either. And this thing seems like probably the most logical round to use for this patterning, since it'll be the 8s that I would use the most. All right, so I've got my targets down there at 20 yards this time, and one thing I didn't do is going to do while the camera was on is I'm going to take a look at this. Thing is broke open, so I'm going to put a gauge, and this is my right barrel. So it's the front trigger. It's going to be the barrel that normally you would shoot first, and this one gauges out just to see what the choke is on it. This one gauges out to about an improved cylinder. It's not a cylinder bore, it's actually choked just a little bit. The next line up is a full choked 10 gauge. So this one is not a cylinder bore, but they're pretty close. So we're just going to call it improved cylinder. Then I come over to this side. And this one is restricted pretty good. It is not falling in there nearly as far. It's not a full choke. I would call it an improved modified, maybe. Nearly a full choke on this left barrel. So you go back to your second trigger. If you've missed with the right barrel, chances are the bird is now farther away. You go to your left barrel and it's going to have a tighter group, and be able to reach that bird as it's farther away. So that's the theory anyway. So let's give this thing a try and see what we can do at 20 yards, what kind of pattern we get, and go from there. All right, so here we are at 20 yards. Right barrel. And left barrel. Nothing blew up. That's very good news. I had not tried the gun. Let's go up and take a look and see what we've got. Got a very good pattern. I put the bead right on the red dot there, and got a good concentration of pellets within that 30-inch diameter circle that I drew, and that's kind of the testing pattern for a shotgun. As you can see, the cardboard wasn't quite big enough top to bottom, but side to side it made it within that 30 inches, and I was able to test that. So we got a very good pattern in there with that improved cylinder barrel. So not quite full, or not quite open, but nearly, and have a good pattern for any kind of a again, more than likely a dove or quail. So let's take a look over here. And considerably more concentrated. That is definitely a more concentrated pattern, a little high too, which could have been me. I'm gonna just, you know, you don't always concentrate as hard with a shotgun, but a little bit high, but still very good pattern, and encouraging that it would definitely group a little tighter as the bird was further out. So we're gonna try it at 40 yards and see if that's the case, and see what it looks like at 40 yards, and see if we can't still be able to get a pretty good pattern within the 30-inch circle at that 40-yard distance. All right, let's try. I'm actually at 35 yards. I was kind of getting out close to where people can drive behind me out here, and so I stopped at 35 yards. See what we do? Remember to put my earplugs in. All right, we're going to do the right barrel first. And then the rear barrel, left barrel. It's still got quite a bit of pop to her, I'll tell you that. It's not exactly like these 2.5-inch shells are lacking in power. They're just lacking in length. So let's take another look downrange and see how we pattern at 35 yards. So here's this improved cylinder barrel, this right barrel, what I would term the close-up barrel, at 35 yards. And we're kind of spreading a little bit just a little bit to the left here. Got a few pellets right around where my center of mass, or my center aim, was on this 30-inch circle, and kind of spreading them out over here to the left. So it's getting to be a little far out there for a near cylinder choke. It's which a cylinder choke would be no choke, so an improved cylinder choke. It's a little ways out there. Not impossible to bring something down, but not necessarily probable either. I'll see if I can get this zoomed up a little bit. I can't tell in my viewfinder if you can pick that out or not. Let me see if I can get that tightened up for you just a little bit. So as you can see, not nearly the density of pattern, which is exactly what you would expect. So let's take a look at the other target. So here's our left barrel, the rear trigger. This is the one with a improved, modified, almost a full choke, right in between modified and full. And we're looking at a pretty good pattern here. This is at 35 yards again, so we're looking at something you feel pretty confident with dove and quail that you'd be able to bring down. And of course, if you were shooting at a longer distance, I always could go to 7.5s. That wouldn't be that much bigger a shot for those birds, and so not quite as many of them, so not as many pellets coming out of 1 ounce, but at the same time they also would be bigger, so what hit would have a little more force to it. So you have to play with that a little bit, but all in all, not a bad pattern at 35 yards for a 2.5-inch English shotgun from 1910. With a little time and practice, I hope to get good enough with this shotgun where I feel real comfortable taking a video out in the field hunting dove or quail or whatever we get a chance to do. So look forward to that. We will get back to the 1860 Henry. I did get the 3F Swiss powder that I was looking for, so we'll be loading that up and doing some of those videos in the future, and maybe even more with the shotgun as well. So once again, for this video, I just want to thank you for coming. my hat. But anyway, I got ahead of myself a little bit there. And we better get some earplugs. That would be a real joy. And now I'm really questioning the wisdom in coming out here right after having the dentist work on that side of my mouth. Not the sharpest thing I've ever done, I'll tell you that.